Good morning, all. We have a nice mix of obstetricians and fetal medicine specialists over here. And without further ado, let us move on to the topic which is at our heart, fetal infections. Very common at 5% of the general population getting affected, getting seroconverted with all the infections, including respiratory infections. Many more are probably affected, but clinically they are silent, so sometimes they are not picked up except for their ultrasound markers. Placental transmission of infection, even in subclinical maternal infection, may result in deformities, syndromes, and thus clinical diagnosis, though it is very extremely difficult, and traditionally used serology is often confusing. That's why we are in a Chakravya, and which way to go we don't know, and hopefully our panel with Vandana ma'am will guide us through today. So may I start with our obstetricians and ask you about role of routine antenatal screening for Torch antibodies? Should we offer it to everyone?
It is not included yet in the routine ANC profile what we do, but it is better to do it in the first antenatal visit, or if the patient is coming in the preconception period for counseling. It should be done, but it is not done routinely, and
Right.
it is not advised
So-
routinely until and unless we had some bad obstetric history or history of exposure to infection, some clue for getting done. Otherwise, we are not doing it routinely.
Great. Would you?
I think
I would like to include the routine rubella immunization.
Immunity.
If she is not immunized already, I would like to repeat her titers for IgG rubella. And if it is negative, then I would like to vaccinate her before she is pregnant. And preconceptional.
Yeah, and that's a very important message, because once I've had my registrar post MS prescribing rubella vaccine to a pregnant patient. So you have to be really, really careful about this, and you have to make sure that they always ask the pregnancy status, they counsel the patient, educate the patient well. However, are there any indications for Torch testing when they're pregnant? We're not going to offer routine screening, that's for sure, unlike Israel, which offers.
When the patient, when she is pregnant, in this pregnancy, unless and until we see some markers in this pregnancy, such as any early growth lag, maybe embryo development which is lagging before 12 weeks of gestation, or any other markers, soft markers, which can see in early anomaly scans. In those patients, we can offer her Torch testing with other tests also, obviously.
Right.
We can also do this test in cases of IUGR and oligohydramnios, even in cases of polyhydramnios also.
Right.
And growth retarded fetuses, I think it is important.
So if we have a patient who presents with fever and rash in pregnancy,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
please,
And
please.
exposure, people who are working in areas like playgroup teachers we have,
Uh-huh.
they have a history of exposure to a child. Then of course we have to have them tested.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right. So both ACOG and RCOG agree with our panel, and they would also do the same. So I'll hand it over to ma'am now. And can anybody tell me what are the clinical manifestations of primary toxoplasma in mother or fetus?
more of a flu-like symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
like fever, coryza, and most commonly it is we consider it as a common flu. But if she is having some history, then we should look for this Torch testing.
While we are on toxoplasma, can we advise our patients how to prevent toxoplasma?
Yes,
If
it
they
is a
have-
preventable
yes,
disease. One of
सो चक्क भाज्या विसळून ठेवायच्या, साबणाने धुवायच्या, मग परत धुवायच्या आणि मग खायच्या.
If they have
So-
pets, of course, they need to be very careful about that too. And toxo predominantly will be asymptomatic in majority, 50 to 70%. Few could present with lymphadenopathy or rash or mild fever.
Even while working in the garden, they should wear
Yes.
gloves. because the soil may
Soil.
be contaminated with cat's litter and all.
Especially with the
So
cats.
this is also important.
Absolutely. And actually, domestic pets are not considered to be at high risk to transmit toxoplasma. So, right.
So I take forward some cases. So first is I want you to see these cases which are requiring. So if there's an exposure to an infective pathogen, so you have a history of rubella infection, you will test it in pregnancy. If there are sonographic markers, only you would test them. If the mother is symptomatic, like a flu you have in the first trimester, or a sudden intrauterine death if it happens, you have to do a torch test at the time of the death, not later on. But when you have an infant fetal which dies inside, do a torch test, because then it is important, but not as a routine. So just reiterating what has been already said. So I am taking some cases forward. This probably is going to be extempore for everyone. So we'll see how everybody would want to understand this. So here we have a gravida 3, 1 abortion, 1 ectopic. So bad history because 2 abortions, 1 ectopic. The second one was a fetal demise at 15 weeks of gestation. On ultrasound was an early IUGR, and before that NT was normal, but the screen was positive and a FISH was done which was normal. So this fetus was an chromosomally normal fetus, so and had an IUFD. So now will you test torch in this patient in the pre-conception period during that IUFD or post-conception now? When will you want to do a torch test? Everybody says they want to do a torch test.
Yes, we agree.
Yeah, you-
Just after the IUFD, yes. At the time.
At the time of the death. Yeah. So not
Yes,
later on.
Not later on, at the time of.
It has to be done later on also, because it has to be a parallel double scoring at the time of infection and 6 weeks after the infection, because now you want to know whether the infection is progressing or it is only the infection was in the acute phase only. So one reading of torch is of no significance. It has to be repeated 6 weeks after the infection also.
So anyway, we missed the bus at the time of IUFD, and somebody has done a torch test on this patient. August, this is after the abortion. August, toxo IgM positive, IgG also positive. Do we start them on spiramycin in the non-pregnant state?
There's no harm. No harm. Spiramycin is absolutely safe drug. Even in pregnancy, if you start it, it has no side effects on the mother as well as fetus. And this drug can be given very safely up to 36 weeks of pregnancy.
Yeah, this is a non-pregnant state.
So no, that's what. So in a non-pregnant, no need to treat, basically.
So if it is toxo IgM, IgG positive, we are okay that there is an infection, but spiramycin has to be started for preventing fetal infection and probably not required during the non-pregnant state.
If the patient's status is known, if she has, maybe you need to screen that also. If
Yeah.
she has got any immunodeficiency.
Other immunodeficiencies. So how frequent will I keep doing this test? Now that she has been started on spiramycin, how every month, every 15 days, every 2 months, when would you want to test this baby? This non-pregnant female.
Non-pregnant, after 3 weeks.
After 6.
Yeah?
The IgM will start peaking after 2 weeks, come back down after say 8 weeks. So essentially after 2 or 3 months, if we repeat and we have a complete seroconversion done, then that
Yeah.
should be it.
So
No need for repeated testing.
So this is not a fetus, this is not when they are pregnant, this is a non-pregnant state we are talking about. So here they've done once at August, then September again IgM positive, December again IgM positive, May again another lab IgM positive again. So it has remained IgM positive for almost 1 year now. So, and she's on spiramycin, what do we do? These are all real cases.
So the IgM in toxo is known to remain positive for a very long time, sometimes as much as 18 months. But that does not mean acute infection, so no need for retesting and being on spiramycin in non-pregnant status.
So, ma'am.
Rather than doing every time IgM, I think we'll have to go for IgG avidity test. This avidity will tell you about the whether it's an recurrent infection, past infection, so or the acute infection. So to differentiate between the acute and past infection, you have to do the IgG avidity test. This avidity test is done to know the this is actually a antibody attraction towards the antigen. And this test, if it is more than 65% positive, it tells you that this is a past infection.
Correct. So if there is an IgM which is positive for a long time in toxoplasmosis, as what Ashwini said, it may remain positive for a year and even more than that also, even if there is no infection. And to differentiate, as madam said, that IgG avidity is most important. If it is low avidity, it would suggest that there is still an infection, and if it is high avidity, that is an old infection. So this patient, somebody did an IUI while she was on toxo IgM positive, and she came to us with a pregnancy positive and an IgM, IgG both positive, asymptomatic patient. I think we've covered all of this. So we go on to, because she had an IUGR earlier, a thrombophilia was done, which was also positive, and she was started on heparin. So avidity was done now, and the avidity was high. So that would say that, ma'am?
It's a
Past infection. So a past infection, she is okay with not being given spiramycin? Yes. You want to give spiramycin or you don't want to give? No. Ma'am?
No.
Good. So then now that we have proved that there is no toxoplasma now at 6 weeks of gestation by the avidity test. So avidity is very important, especially if you have any positive in the first trimester. That will almost rule out that it is no infection in that weeks of gestation. So she need not be on spiramycin. So we are still on that. IgM was positive. She was started on aspirin, heparin. Spiramycin not to be done. Do we do amniocentesis?
No.
So again, not required, because we have proved in the first trimester that we don't need. IgM, although it is positive, but avidity negative. So most important is when you have some plus minus reports, especially IgG positives, maybe IgM negative, either you repeat it as what madam said after 4 weeks to see an increase in your IgG values, or you look at avidity. If you don't have time enough, then avidity is the best test to be done, to be looking at that. So toxoplasma messages, toxo IgM may remain positive for up to 2 years after a primary infection. Ascertain what is the infection by IgG and IgM. IgM positive is infection, but it may be positive for toxoplasma for a long time. So avidity is important, and an avidity of more than 30% would indicate it's a past infection. So, Priya, what are the markers of intrauterine infections that you routinely see on an anomaly scan or later on in pregnancy?
Basically, we see the cerebral signs and non-cerebral. So cerebral, there is periventricular leukomalacia, intracerebral calcifications, especially at the basal ganglia. Then there, in other cases, there might be intraventricular adhesions also. And then we have the other symptoms, other features like hepatosplenomegaly. Then placentomegaly when the thickness is more than 40 mm, and stillbirth, FGR, and may sometimes lead to spontaneous miscarriage or stillbirth.
So do you, as a routine in anomaly scan, look at it, or later on in growth scans also you look at markers whenever you're doing a scan?
Whenever we see a baby, we see for everything. So if it is there, it's there and seen. It's staring at
has
us.
to be
Chances are
seen.
there we might have missed in the anomaly scan. So
And
better
it
to
might
look at
have
every
come up
scan.
also later on. Ashwini, you want to add on?
No, especially if we are looking at a fetus with a growth restriction in the 3rd trimester, that would another be a
HGB
marker.
also.
And oligo, if you're seeing sometimes, then we again go back and revisit everything.
So what they all are saying is, whenever you see markers of infection, then you revisit to look at what was her maternal titers, and probably you may need to do more tests for that. So what are the markers? You have non-cerebral, echogenic bowel, hepatosplenomegaly, liver calcifications. Cerebral would be ventriculomegaly, calcification, some poor encaphylaxis, placentomegaly, hydrops, and very important is IUGR. Having a growth restriction with normal Dopplers, you would be little worried about infection. Priya, you wanted to say something? Okay. All right. So we go to next patient. This is 2 abortions earlier. 14-15 weeks has come with these reports of toxo, rubella, CMV, everything IgG positive. That is the most common thing that happens, that test done at the second trimester, all torch, IgG is positive, IgM is negative. What will you do? We would start with Mona, ma'am.
IgG is positive in toxo, rubella and CMV. It indicates a old infection, not acute infection. So there are less chances of baby being affected. So
So probably this is not even an infection.
It's a good sign that it just shows that the lady is immune.
Yes.
immune to the infection. All these.
So if you want to be sure, as madam said, you can repeat it in 4 weeks. and
Titers are
see.
increasing or the avidity, then we can.
So this will be a report. So don't get confused and don't do these tests for no reason. That is the gist of all this, that don't do torch test as a routine for all your pregnancies or with one abortion. You will get into these fix of IgGs positive and IgMs negative. So we left that and said that okay, she doesn't have any other thing, anti-scan normal. Now at malformation scan, we saw these calcifications, liver calcifications, some calcification even in the myocardium. Now what will you want to do as obstetrician, ma'am?
Yes. Here we have to know the severity of the intrauterine fetal infections. Because once you'll discuss with the patient, now they'll start asking questions, what to be done further. And how you will also take the decision whether you have to continue the pregnancy or you have to terminate the pregnancy. This question will definitely going to arise. So in such cases, sometimes we have to go for amniocentesis and get the specific, serologically specific virus DNA in the amniotic fluid. And suppose like if you are getting a CMV specific DNA virus, you can ask them to do a quantitative estimation of the viremia. And if there is a severe viremia, quantitatively it's very high in the amniotic fluid, then you are very sure that this fetus is going to have multiple systemic defects, you can call it. Because like if you talk about CMV, there is almost 40% chance of vertical transmission from the placenta to the fetus. If you talk of toxoplasmosis, in the early stage, it's almost 90%. If you talk of rubella in early pregnancy, it is also very high transmission. So we have to go for amniocentesis, see the viral overload and then decide the future of the fetus.
Dr. Prashant, I think you've not spoken at all. So, will you do a torch titers now or you would do an amniocentesis directly?
We can do amniocentesis directly, but torch titer doing will help us to see the progress. Means how these are rising or not. And more importantly, avidity test.
Amniocentesis cannot be done before 20 weeks of pregnancy or 21 weeks, because see, if the patient has had infection, exposure to infection, it is going to take further 3 weeks because it is in the incubation period. And after that, these viruses, when they go into the fetal circulation, there should be enough replication of these fetal DNA cells so that they should excrete via kidney into the amniotic fluid. Then only you are going to pick up the DNA cells in the amniotic fluid. So there is no point in doing amniocentesis before 20 weeks or 21 weeks.
What
She's
about
already 20 weeks. Ashwini, add on.
avidity in this case? At 14, we had IgG positive. Now we are 20 and we are seeing this. So before we jump to say that this is torch, avidity I would want to know. And then
we saw the toxo IgG rising.
All
This
right.
is just additive information that we got. But
Okay.
if you have got fetal infection on ultrasound, I think amniocentesis is
Would
what
be
we would
the-
want to
Because
do
since
for
here
all.
we are seeing already the markers of fetal
Markers are there.
affection. So it's necessary
But
for
we
us to
need, yeah,
investigate.
and then we need to do at least 6 weeks later to give it time enough to excrete in the urine, as ma'am was saying.
So, because we saw fetal markers, you need to do an amniocentesis. Everything else is additive if we want to. And as madam said, the risk of transmission in toxoplasma is as high as 20 to 50%. First trimester is less risk but very severe infection. And third trimester is more risk and milder infection. So, a toxoplasma early, the severity of the disease is going to be very bad, and especially if you see markers, then it is very bad. You may do a PCR and also quantitative test to look at how much is the viremia that there is, but if you see markers and if it is positive, it is already bad.
And
We all accept that.
sometimes we
fetus is
can
already
take the help
affected in
of
this
fetal
case.
MRI also in such cases.
Yes.
Prognostic value.
So now she is 20 weeks, MTP time is gone. What do we do? Do we treat her or we go to court and get a termination? Is there some treatment available? She's
Yes.
toxo-positive.
Before 18 weeks, we
PCR.
can start patient with spiramycin, but after 20 weeks, pyrimethamine, folinic acid, these treatment
Sulfadiazine.
and sulfadiazine.
That is if the
Postnatally also for 1 year, sulfadiazine should be continued to the
Pyrimethamine should be continued for 1 year to the neonate.
About the spiramycin, it is concentrated in the placenta. It does not cross the placental barrier. So when we are seeing a fetal infection already, we
Then
need
we
to
need
treat
to
this
do
patient with
pyrimethamine
pyrimethamine with
sulfadiazine.
sulfadiazine. And before, if there is no fetal infection seen and toxo-positive in a mother, IgM, and she wants to continue this pregnancy, then spiramycin is done.
So correct. So the treatment is not spiramycin always. You have to look at what is there. So in case you have amniocentesis positive with markers, it is already an infected baby, and spiramycin will not help. Spiramycin is only for preventing infection. It is not for treating the fetus. So if you have a toxo-positive in your amniocentesis, you will need to start them on pyrimethamine sulfadoxine combination. So amniocentesis, as everybody said, should be performed for infection only after 18 weeks, as diuresis is not fully established, and it should at least be 6 weeks from the time of your infection. So you can't do a CVS and say that I will look at toxoplasmosis. And the treatment modality, if it is a confirmed infection, primary infection, then you may start spiramycin before the amniocentesis is done, because amniocentesis you may do later on, but you start everyone who is toxo-IgM positive with maternal infection with spiramycin. But if PCR comes positive, you shift over to pyrimethamine sulfadoxine. So spiramycin is for reducing the risk of transmission. Does it reduce completely? Are you saying 100% baby is going to become all right?
No.
Uh,
That's why we are not 100% sure. That's why you have to advise patient to go for serial monthly sonographic examination to detect any other fetal anomalies, like fetus is developing any hydrops or any cerebral lesion.
Some of the things can develop in the baby later. There might be some neurodevelopmental delay or hearing issues with the child. So even if the baby is born normally, maybe a little IUGR, but this baby might have some later issues in life.
Very correct. So even if we start on pyrimethamine, we've given all the treatment, we've gone through whole pregnancy, the baby is born asymptomatic, then also you need to follow these babies. This patient we followed up 38 weeks, growth was on the lower side, hepatomegaly continued, asymptomatic at birth, but by research, congenital toxo is usually not apparent at birth, and 70 to 90% will have serious disease in adulthood. So toxo is something very bad. So if you see markers, it is better that we terminate before 20 weeks, or if we have to, then we start
have
treatment.
24 weeks.
But we need to counsel the parents that it is not too good. Take some questions like this. 26-year-old, preconception counseling, rubella, IgG, IgM negative. What will you do?
Vaccinate
counsel
her.
them for vaccination.
Everybody same. Vaccinate. And when will you ask her to conceive again?
At least 3 months after the
At least 1 month.
At least a month from the vaccination, not to conceive. But as always, some will come back with pregnancy. Now she's come back after about a month of the vaccination with pregnancy. What
she
will
should continue the pregnancy. This is not the indication for terminating the pregnancy. By chance, if she had been given MMR or rubella, she has to continue.
Yes. Anyone else?
The vaccine strain is not reported to cause any congenital problems in a fetus, so she can continue the pregnancy.
It is attenuated. and will
Preferably,
not
it should
cause-
be avoided, but if it happens, it should be continued.
So if you have a patient with vaccinated and conceives, then you can allow her to continue pregnancy and do a good scan and monitor the patient. That there is still no case which has been reported where rubella vaccination caused infection in the fetus. But this is a primary gravida MD student, rash, cough, cold. Will you do investigation? She's not had any test done.
Definitely, because cough, cold, coryza, influenza-like symptoms may be of some torch group of infection may be there. Ask the history of some papulomacular rashes starting from the trunk going caudally. They are usually painless papules. So you have to investigate her because she is in the early trimester. And whenever there is an exposure of rubella or any torch group of infection in the early trimester, chances of fetal defects are very high. As the trimester is increasing, the chances of defect is decreasing. There is inverse relationship between the congenital anomalies with the exposure to the infection trimester wise.
Madam answers before I ask the question only. The next question is this
There are also
only.
20% chances of stillbirth, means abortion.
Yes. Yeah. So this patient we would ask the history of vaccination and do a rubella test. You want to do whole torch or only rubella?
Better to go for whole.
Okay. So she was not vaccinated. Our rubella IgM came as equivocal IgG negative. Termination or you would do anything?
No termination.
Rubella positive. You said very high risk, 80% risk in the first trimester. She's rubella maculopapular rash at 6 weeks.
Repeat this once more after. Repeat
4
after
weeks.
a-
Repeat the IgG after 4 weeks.
after
If there is
4 weeks.
fourfold increase, then only.
It is IgM equivocal.
IgM is equivocal. So
And
just
she has
repeat
a
it
rash.
once but yeah, repeat it and then
Huh? So
acute infection.
yeah,
just
so you may
repeat it.
repeat it, but then she
But then
has
it
an
is acute
infection.
infection,
So if
therefore
there is an
termination.
infection for rubella, termination or continue?
No. First trimester, almost 90% risk of
Termination.
transmission and severe defects. So
Mona ma'am?
termination.
Yeah, so rubella in the first trimester, if confirmed,
Then termination.
then it is teratogenic. Yes.
Congenital rubella.
So 80% probability of vertical transmission in the first trimester and also severe damage. So this is very high infection in the first and very high damage. So going on to next case, I think we'll have 2 cases only. Early onset IUGR starting at around 29 weeks of gestation. The scan showed no Likert, symmetric IUGR, echogenic bowel. There was one VST also and had a normal Doppler. Ashwini, will you want to do anything for this?
Yes, I mean, the investigations are enlisted. First, I'd like to go back and see what her first trimester screening result was in terms of aneuploidies. Then you've mentioned that she's APLA negative, all of that is normal, and therefore we come to TORCH. In TORCH, we are rubella IgG positives and all IgM negatives, and avidity is high for rubella in this. Right. So no. So if we are rubella IgG positive and all IgG avidities are high, with this picture, I am not thinking more in lines of infection right now.
And at
No.
29 weeks, will anyone, Priya, you want to do an amnio at 29
No,
weeks?
until unless
So
is not going to
everybody,
change.
so IUGR, we are suspecting there is FGR only and monitor the baby.
take care of other
Serial
things.
Doppler should be done. That is
Doppler is normal completely. Uterines are normal, umbilical MCAs are normal. So everybody of the opinion that we just monitor this baby. So we took it till 37 weeks and the baby is born with rubella, cataract, IUGR, sensory neural deafness. So we can be held unaware like this. So it is very difficult to say whether we should have done an amnio or not done an amnio for these cases. So, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Mike.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment here. IgG avidity lasts for 3 months, right? And if rubella infection has happened in the first trimester, before 20 weeks, it will be a low infectivity at 29 weeks. So we must think of rubella here.
So
And I
avidity
think I
doesn't
would
help
suggest
in the
doing it.
third trimester, ma'am?
Well, it is not so helpful.
Yes.
But I think I would do an amnio. Because with a small baby with normal Doppler at 29 weeks, likely she will require a cesarean section, right? So are you going to take all it? We don't do amnios only for the sake of termination. A large number of amnios are actually done for reassurance, right? And I think that is very, very important aspect of antenatal care. We should not think that any abnormality and every abnormality should only lead to termination, right? And to be honest, if there is something seriously wrong with this baby, approach the court for termination.
29 weeks.
Absolutely. 32 weeks also they will allow you to terminate the pregnancy. We happened to us recently, AVSD with T21. But unless we inundate the court with these cases, we are not going to get to what we want, that severe abnormalities. I think it's only right. And it is not a very complicated procedure at all, to be honest. So we should not be scared of approaching the court. There are people out there out to help us. But my point was basically to bring into the light that I'm not surprised that avidity is negative, is showing low infectivity, because this infection has happened much earlier and it will be valid only for 3 months. And if you have a rubella positive in the first trimester and the couple want to continue the pregnancy, I would like to just highlight one more point which was related to the previous case. Now, when you talk about 80% chances of vertical transmission, there are two issues here. There is one is vertical transmission, that is the chances of infection.
And
the second is
affection.
chances
Affection.
of affection. These are two different things. It doesn't mean that if you're infected, you will always be affected. Its simple answer is, we get so many viral infections, but how many of us get GBS? Right? Not many. That is affection. GBS is affection. So if you have a 80% vertical transmission, there's a 80% chance of affection, right? But there is still 20% chance, and there are many couples who might be holding on to that 20%, right?
Yeah.
And it's only fair that you prove an infection before terminating the pregnancy, and that would be with an amnio.
But that
Right.
would be
16
reaching
weeks,
16
17,
weeks
yeah,
now.
16, 17 weeks. So what?
6 weeks to 16 weeks.
See, 6 weeks you can give. If it's a first trimester infection at 12, 13 weeks, do it 17, 18 weeks, right? And if the PCR is negative, then
You're
that would
still not
be-
100% in
No, if
rubella.
PCR is negative, it's a very high probability that it will not be infected. And you have a structurally normal baby, you've done an echo which is normal, so there are no ultrasound signs of infection which you've already given 6 weeks gap, and then you have a PCR negative, and that is pretty much 100%. Then why have a test that will be so sensitive? So PCR is very, very sensitive. Very sensitive. But you have to do it at the right time. You have to give a minimum 5 weeks from the point of infection to the doing the test per se, right? And if you have proven infection, rubella is bad. It's simple bad. A huge morbidity and lifelong commitment. So I think it's only fair to offer this to the parents, and if they're willing to do it, do it, and then help them to get to the court if it is proven positive. But definitely no termination without proving it's a problem indeed, and it has got long-term morbidity, right? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But
Ma'am, I just have a question. There were no other markers in the anomaly scan or previous to this.
That's
only
why if
presented
we
as
have
FGR.
markers, we would have tested. But
Yes.
if there's no marker, cataract is difficult to look at.
FGR itself
Is the only marker
was
that
the
there
only
was.
marker. And that too was
Yeah, I know, but
that too at 29.
yes, with normal. Yes. Yeah.
Would you prefer a cordocentesis, ma'am, or amnio?
No, amnio is better for torch. Only thing is the first trimester rubella infection, 80% chances of getting affected. You have to counsel them that you will have to wait till 16, 17 weeks for an amnio to decide that 20% risk. You have to counsel.
Ma'am, I have a question. In this case, the IUGR is a later manifestation. Na, after
Yes, it
20
will be a late manifestation of infection.
Other markers are all investigations are normal, placentomegaly and all. This is also not given. Then
Not necessarily you can have placentomegaly. So that's the challenge with infections. The presentation could be very variable.
then amniocentesis. What is the indication of doing it at 18?
You have an FGR, you have documented history of rubella infection in the first trimester, right? You've got an IgM which is already positive. Whatever, irrespective of your IgG or your avidity, I would think of infection absolutely.
Please.
Not just because it's an infection panel, but I would think of infection because FGR, if you think of uteroplacental insufficiency, you should have some abnormal Doppler somewhere, right? So,
But the-
and renal functions are being affected with the normal Doppler because if you have an oligo, some high uterine artery PI, raised umbilical artery PI, something you should be there, should be there. But infection, yes, is an important cause for unexplained FGR, and in this context, you already have a history.
So as Pratima madam said, by the time ultrasound markers present themselves, the insult has already occurred and your IgG, IgMs will not help, your IgG avidity will not help in the late trimester. And probably madam, amniocentesis may still come negative at so late weeks of gestation. May or may not.
Ma'am, if we would have done amnio and if we would have got a positive report at 33 weeks.
Same thing, no, what can we do? It's just the termination then, no? 29 weeks. 24 weeks.
So, just to elaborate on that, we have done more than 150 abortions beyond 20 weeks so far. And turnaround time is 7 days from filing a case to you getting a verdict. Patient does not need to see a lawyer. There are NGOs which do it free of cost for unaffording and up to maximum of 9,000 rupees for affording. So they actually pay for the paperwork of non-affording as well. So, exactly. So, you really need not worry about it. I mean, you can very well get the justice within stipulated time frame. And now we are moving towards, so in Maharashtra, we have now Government of Maharashtra SOPs which were commissioned, and that actually mentions RCOG guideline for intracardiac KCL for termination beyond 20.
Cardiac KCL, exactly, that's what I wanted.
All
So
of
even
that
if we
is
have
sorted
something
now.
like this which is diagnosed at a later gestation, then we do get a permission for intracardiac KCL even at 30. I mean, that's
In Maharashtra, we have not gotten yet. Bangalore case did get it, if I remember it right. Intracardiac KCL, did
Because-
they get it? No, it was a AVSD. Yeah. But, yeah.
Ma'am, at now this case, if we would have diagnosed, it would be already 33 weeks. So termination means, are they giving permission for intracardiac case? So
No,
what,
but we have
ma'am? At
mentioned
32
that in
weeks,
the
if we
Maharashtra
relevance
government
could be
SOPs,
live
ma'am,
now.
and that will come into national SOPs as well. And you can get it if you need it. But it is medical board's decision. Yeah. Exactly.
First we do because
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's
No,
why
that's
the
what-
intracardiac KCL first before termination. So that's what.
Yeah.
Court, exactly.
Exactly.
This is understood.
Yeah.
To have a baby born will be more difficult, so it's better to put in KCL and then terminate it. The method to do the MTP is you to decide.
A couple of our cases were shifted to the particular hospital which they had suggested. So
Yes.
they carry on the procedure there.
Pune Hospital, I mean Pune Government Hospital now has a facility to do that.
Ours, I think, had gone to Wadi or GS only.
Yeah. So
So
they
it was-
also have facility to do
No,
that.
that earlier we were sending all to JJ. So now in your court, if you say that you want it to be done by whichever doctor in the hospital, it's allowed in that. So that has to be given at the time of your application itself. It's done now. It's not to only government hospitals. It needs to be.
Wherever they want. Now, coming from the gloomy picture of these things, let us go to somewhat little rosier. So, primigravida, rhesus negative, referred with fetal hydrops at 24 weeks. Anybody diagnosis?
Your first husband's blood group.
I would like
Right.
to see the.
ICT. Yeah.
I
So,
would like to
mind
see-
you, 10% of pregnancies are not with the declared partner. So,
I would like
keeping
to-
that aside, basically,
MCA.
you would like to do indirect Coombs
Yeah.
test on the mother,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and MCA also. The money.
Of
Right.
course, yes.
Not all hydrops are because of the Rh negative
And-
pregnancy. Even in Rh negative pregnancy, you might have hydrops because of other factors. Most
Right.
importantly,
So now she has a history of sore throat, fever 1 week ago, no previous pregnancies or blood transfusions, ICT negative. What next? Yeah, about
Parvo.
Parvovirus. IgM.
Yeah. So IgM positive, IgG negative. What next? Those were the
we
findings.
need to see the
Sorry.
heart also. Many a times this baby is present with bradycardia.
Yes.
MCAPSV.
How do we play the video?
What's MCAPSV?
Right. So you'd like to do MCA-PSV monitoring at 26 weeks. It is 62 centimeter per second. So
Fetal
it's
anemia.
It's
above 1.5. So treatment.
RUT.
transfusion.
Yeah. How do we? Yeah. So you'll find baby's tummy not moving. Okay. Yeah. So we'll. So videos are not playing. Sorry for that.
Now it would play.
Okay. Yeah. So let us elaborate more on the. Okay, I'm just going to skip.
For
that.
parvovirus, any precautions special for intrauterine transfusions?
Yeah.
Any transfusion you would continue to do them. For parvovirus, any special precautions?
And are
One
not-
more
not
thing,
needed.
parvovirus is a self-limiting infection. She would probably not require repeated transfusions because once the viral the fetus develops its own immunity, and over a period of 4 to 6 weeks usually the
Viral load
hydrops
will
can
reduce,
go back.
then it will settle
Like for
down.
Rh negative, these are the antibodies which are constantly even lysing. But in this case, there is no such phenomenon.
So for parvovirus, it may be just one
Just one
transfusion
transfusion.
required at the time of the viremia. And second is there is some cardiac dysfunction. So you need to be very careful about the overload in
overloading.
patients with parvovirus when you're doing a transfusion. I think we would.
Yeah,
close
I
it.
think we're done. So, yeah, so, yeah, so in conclusion, ultrasound markers of fetal infection are prognostic indicators for poor outcome. Routine torch in low risk patient not justified. Instead, be vigilant for markers for perinatal infection on ultrasound. In the patients, do torch testing if you need prognostication, so if you have findings. Positive IgG titers, reassure her that she is immune, do not scare her, and does not affect the present pregnancy. So, gestational age, yeah. So that's about it. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes. One question is troubling me. I'll ask Pratibha madam to answer it. When the torch infections, you talk of CMV, rubella, every infection has got so dreadful complications and later on sequelae, neurological sequelae to the fetus and neonate life. Why not to make it mandatory for all the patients to do at least one torch serology investigations? We said it is not done for low risk, But do you think any low risk patient is not going to have these infections?
I think it's a very
And
good
it is
question.
not so costly because everywhere it is not done, it is not recommended, it is not done. What is the harm in if you do it?
I think it's a very good question. First of all, I don't like torch. I don't like the word torch because others doesn't mean anything at all. We have toxoplasmosis, we have CMV, and we have got rubella. Herpes does not mean anything at all, right? So we have to be very clear that instead of talking torch, let us be very specific about what we want to investigate. 80% of the women are immune to rubella. So realistically, you're anyway looking for rubella, right? Most of the antenatal panels will have rubella IgG, so you're picking it up anyway. How common is toxoplasmosis in our country?
But even if one patient
No,
gets,
how common is? My question is whether, your question was whether we should do population screening or whether we should not do population
toxo
screening.
is seen with
When you do
2% cases
population-
in 1000 live births.
When you say population screening, which means it has to be, one, it should be applicable to everybody universally. Two, it should have a treatment that you institute which is effective. And three is that it is cost effective. Correct? Now, in a private setup, it's completely different ball game, right? But when you talk about universal screening, recommendation that comes from bodies, right? You may decide that in your practice you want to do for everybody because last week you had a case of toxoplasmosis that was not diagnosed. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in general, what do we do for everybody? Now, to me, the number of toxoplasmosis in screening that we do, the tests that we do, even based on mild ventriculomegaly that you see on the scan or echogenic bowel, 99.9% are actually negative, right? So if the baby is asymptomatic, the mother is asymptomatic and everything is fine, and where do you get toxoplasmosis? From cold salads and some cats and things like that. It's not very common in our country. In France, toxoplasmosis is much more common. So they have toxoplasmosis as a part of the routine screening protocol. So you need to think why you need to apply a screening test for a general population before actually doing it, because once you do it, you're obliged to continue it and make it viable for everybody. It's not the matter that it's only 300, 400 or 500 rupees. I would rather do PLGF for 500 rupees than do toxoplasmosis, right? To me, preeclampsia is more important than toxoplasmosis, correct? So in a general population, I think it's not viable to do toxoplasmosis, CMV as a routine unless you have, of course, if you have symptoms, that's a different issue altogether. And of course, it's not a cause of recurrent anomalies or recurrent problems, because if she has toxoplasmosis in the previous infection, it is not going to happen again, right? One can argue toxoplasmosis has got an effective treatment, CMV probably has got an effective treatment, but it's all still not certain. I hope that answers your question to a large extent.
To some extent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, moderators and the panelists.